So let's talk about Linkspreed. This is a company that's built its entire reputation on software, on this big idea of a decentralized Web 4. But now, they're making this huge, risky bet on hardware. It's a division they're calling Wynix, and it's basically their attempt to control their own destiny. But you gotta ask, why would a software giant jump into the hardware game? I mean, that is a tough market. Well, let's break it down. And this is the statement that really kicks it all off. Linkspreed is basically saying that their old way of thinking, their core belief, has shifted. When they say software alone isn't enough, they're challenging their own identity. So what's the problem they're facing that's so massive, so fundamental that the only answer they see is to start building their own devices from scratch? Here's how we're going to unpack this. First, we'll dig into their whole philosophy, this idea of code meets concrete. Then we'll look at the first actual products, the W4 phone fleet, and what they're thinking for the future of laptops. After that, we get into the really futuristic stuff with a new reality. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see the big picture. All right, first up, code meets concrete. This is all about the why. You know, Linkspreed is famous for W4OS, their operating system for this new decentralized web. So why on earth would they risk everything to get into the brutal world of hardware manufacturing? Well, their main goal has always been pretty clear. They want to build a digital world that's open, that's secure, and where you, the user, are actually in control. But somewhere along the line, they must have realized that just having the software wasn't enough to really deliver on that promise. And that realization led them to this fascinating idea they call hardware independence. Now, I know, that sounds totally contradictory, right? You're building your own hardware to be independent of hardware. But here's the twist. Their goal isn't to create another walled garden like we're so used to. They still want W4OS to run on everything, everywhere. Their Wynix devices are just meant to be the gold standard, the perfect example of how well the software can run, setting a benchmark for performance and security that, in theory, lifts up the whole ecosystem. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how does that turn into actual products you can hold? Well, it all starts with the foundation, the W4 phone fleet. This is their plan to get this whole new ecosystem right into our hands. And they are coming out of the gate with a really clear, really aggressive target. They want to make a modern smartphone for under $200. Now, that's not just a price point, it's a massive statement. They're signaling that they want to bring the security and privacy of their decentralized OS to absolutely everyone, all over the world. And this slide really lays out their two-part strategy. On one hand, you've got the Gen 1 phone, which they're calling the people's device. It's all about making it affordable and getting that core W4OS security out to as many people as possible. But then you have Gen 2, and that's a completely different beast. They call it the Pocket Server. This thing is designed for professionals who need insane performance, tons of RAM and storage, and true data sovereignty. We're talking about hosting your own data right from a device in your pocket. All right, so phones are the starting point. That makes sense. But what about getting actual work done? Well, that brings us to their vision for the laptop. Computing, redefined with something called the W4 book. Now, it's really important to remember, this is still just a concept for now, but the ideas they're floating are pretty cool. Of course, you'd expect seamless integration with their W4OS and all-day battery life, that's table stakes, but where they're really trying to shake things up is with a modular and convertible design. It sounds like they're not just trying to build another laptop, they're trying to rethink how a portable computer can change and adapt to whatever you're doing. Okay, so we've got the foundational stuff, the phones and laptop. But what's the end game here? This next part, a new reality, is where we get a glimpse into Linkspreed's most futuristic vision, what it might actually feel like to live inside their ecosystem. The whole goal of what they're calling their Linkspreed reality, or LR products, is, well, it's incredibly ambitious. They literally want to merge our digital and physical lives, creating a digital layer that we can see and interact with right on top of the real world. And the first way they want to do this is with the LR glasses, which, you guessed it, follows that two-generation plan. Gen 1 is meant to be a simple, lightweight, augmented reality experience. Think getting key notifications in your field of view, or having a hands-free AI assistant. But Gen 2 is where they want to push for deeper immersion, adding things like integrated audio and much better displays for a way richer experience. Now, that all sounds very immersive, maybe even a little intense. But what if you're not exactly a wear glasses all the time kind of person? What if you want something way more discreet? It looks like Linkspreed has thought about that too. And for that, we have the LR Ring. This is a fascinating idea. It basically puts all this intelligence right on your fingertip. You get advanced health tracking, NFC for contactless payments, and subtle little vibrations for notifications. It's really designed for a screen-free digital lifestyle, giving you the benefits of being connected without constantly being distracted by a screen.
So, we've talked about phones, laptops, glasses, and now a ring. Let's take a step back and look at the final piece of the puzzle, the big picture. What is the ultimate goal? How does all of this connect?
You know, when you lay it all out like this, their strategy is actually pretty straightforward. It happens in 3 clear steps. Step 1, establish that core philosophy of hardware independence. Step 2, build the foundational devices that get people into the ecosystem, like the W4 phone and book. And then, step 3, start pioneering new, more natural ways to interact with it all, with things like the LR glasses and ring. It all builds on itself. And all of this brings us to the one massive question that Linkspreed's whole strategy forces us to ask. In a world that is so dominated by these digital walled gardens, these closed ecosystems, is building your own hardware the only way to achieve real digital freedom anymore? It's a huge, incredibly expensive gamble, and honestly, whether they pull it off or not could completely reshape the future of the open web.